The sun hung low over the desert, its orange glare stretching across miles of rolling dunes like an endless sea of fire. Mara's boots crunched against the shifting sand as she dragged the last piece of her malfunctioned scout ship across the ridge. The little vessel had served her well in the outer systems, but now it was little more than a smoking heap, the engine dead, the communications offline. She wiped sweat from her brow and stared at the horizon. Somewhere out there had to be shelter. Somewhere out there she could rest. Her water ration was running low, and the wind had picked up, kicking sand into her eyes and mouth. Every step was heavier than the last, and each breath burned as if the desert wanted her to stop moving. She had survived harsher worlds before, yes, but none quite like this one. Here, the air itself seemed to fight against her. As the sun dipped further, Mara noticed something unusual, a shimmer, faint but distinct, on the edge of a nearby ridge. At first, she thought it might be a mirage, a trick of the heat and sand. But as she squinted, the shimmer resolved into a structure, a camp, partially hidden in the dunes, with tents that glimmered as if made from polished metal threads. The sight was both terrifying and relieving. Mara knew she had to reach it before darkness fell. She approached cautiously, mindful of the strange silhouettes moving around the tents. Their shapes were unlike anything she had seen, tall, angular forms, lithe but strong, with heads crowned by smooth crests that gleamed in the setting sun. Their movements were precise, almost mechanical, yet undeniably alive. Mara's heart pounded, a mix of fear and fascination. "Hello," she called softly, unsure if they would even understand her. Her voice sounded fragile in the vastness of the desert, swallowed by the wind almost immediately. There was no answer. She took another step forward, then froze. One of the figures had stopped and turned, its gaze locking onto her in an instant. Mara felt a chill run down her spine. The being approached, not hastily, but with deliberate speed. As it drew closer, Mara could see the elegance in its form: long limbs, skin that shimmered like molten silver, and eyes that reflected every color of the desert sunset. It was humanoid but more beautiful, more precise than any human she had ever encountered. I just need shelter," Mara said, raising her hands slightly in a gesture of peace. Her voice trembled, though she tried to mask it. "Please, I won't cause any trouble." Mara froze, staring at the creature. Its touch was not hostile, not cruel, but there was no doubt that it expected obedience. "In the tent! Now!" The voice was sharp yet melodious, a sound that vibrated in her chest more than her ears. It was the voice of authority, one that brooked no argument. Mara hesitated. Her instincts screamed at her to run, to escape while she could, but every part of her knew that resistance here would be foolish. She allowed herself to be guided, stumbling slightly as the desert sand shifted beneath her feet. The alien moved with an effortless grace, leading her to a large tent at the center of the camp. The fabric glimmered faintly in the last rays of the sun, giving it an almost magical appearance. Inside, the air was cool, filtered through layers of protective material that seemed to hum faintly. The contrast between the blistering heat outside and the calm interior was almost overwhelming. "Sit," the alien commanded, gesturing to a low cushion that seemed oddly comfortable for someone used to the hardness of human furniture. Mara obeyed, sinking into the cushion and taking a deep breath. Her heart was still racing, but the warmth in her chest slowly began to fade. The alien, whom Mara would soon learn was Princess Kyra of this desert world, studied her carefully. Kyra's eyes were keen, sharp, and intelligent, observing every twitch, every movement, every detail. She noted Mara's worn clothing, the scratches on her arms from the sand, the small cuts that had already started to scab over from the harsh journey. Every detail was catalogued, assessed, weighed. "You are far from home," Kyra said, almost a statement rather than a question. Her voice carried authority but was not unkind. There was curiosity there, a glimmer of interest that Mara found both reassuring and unsettling. "Yes," Mara admitted. My ship broke down. I didn't know where else to go." She swallowed, hoping her explanation would suffice. "I didn't mean to intrude. I just needed shelter for the night." She walked around Mara, her steps silent against the woven floor of the tent. The princess examined the supplies, the small pack Mara carried, even the wear pattern on Mara's boots. Finally, she stopped, standing tall and imposing. "You are resourceful," Kyra said slowly, a hint of approval in her voice. "Humans are strange. I have never met one like you before." Humans had survived countless worlds, navigated impossible situations, and come through challenges that others thought insurmountable. She had learned long ago that ingenuity, courage, and a willingness to improvise were often more powerful than raw strength. Perhaps Kyra had noticed this. The princess finally sat across from her, crossing her legs with an elegance that made Mara feel clumsy and human. You are here for safety, but safety comes with rules. You must follow them or you will not last another hour on this desert. Her gaze was steady, unyielding. Do you understand? The grip on her wrist earlier had been a warning, and she knew it was not empty. She could see now that survival here required more than luck. It required respect for the world's hierarchy, for its rules, and perhaps for its people. Kyra studied her for a long moment, then waved her hand toward a small table. Eat, drink, recover. We will talk when you are ready. Tentatively, she sampled a few bites, surprised at how satisfying the strange food was. Kyra observed silently, her expression unreadable. It was not a judgment, Mara realized, but a test, an assessment of how she would react to unfamiliar circumstances. Humans often succeeded where other species failed because they adapted quickly, and Mara had a feeling that this test, though subtle, was the first of many. After she finished, Kyra finally spoke again. You will sleep here tonight. Tomorrow you will explain why you came to my camp. But know this, deception is pointless. I can see through it. She felt the weight of Kyra's gaze, and for the first time she truly understood that this princess was not like anyone she had met. She was intelligent, calculating, and undeniably powerful. Yet there was something else, curiosity, perhaps even a hint of admiration for the human sitting in her tent. As night fell over the desert, Mara lay on a soft mat that had been prepared for her. The wind howled outside, carrying the chill of the desert night, but inside the tent, it was warm and strangely safe. She stared at the fabric ceiling, her mind racing with thoughts of the alien princess, the strange camp, and the vast world that stretched endlessly beyond the dunes. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to relax just a little. She had survived this long because she trusted her instincts, relied on her wits, and refused to give up. Here in Kyra's tent, she would need all of those qualities and more. Sleep came slowly, but when it did, it was deep and dreamless, filled with the quiet hope that tomorrow would bring understanding, not danger. Myra did not know what awaited her beyond the tent, but she felt a spark of confidence. She had faced impossible odds before. She could do it again. Humans always could. And somewhere across the desert, Princess Kyra watched the tent, her mind full of questions about this strange, resilient human who had wandered into her world. Morning light filtered through the shimmering fabric of the tent, casting soft patterns on the sand floor. Mara stirred, stretching carefully, feeling the stiffness in her muscles from the long walk across the desert. She had slept better than she expected, the warmth of the tent a strange comfort after the harsh night. Outside, the desert glowed with the pale colors of dawn, but inside the air was calm, almost still, carrying a faint hum that Mara could feel more than hear. Kyra was already awake. She sat across from Mara, legs crossed, hands folded neatly in her lap, watching the human with a measured, silent curiosity. Her eyes were sharp, alert, like a predator assessing its environment, but there was no threat in her stance. Mara could feel the power radiating from the princess, subtle but undeniable, and she knew that her survival today depended on understanding Kyra's intentions as much as the desert's dangers. Eat, Kyra said, motioning toward a tray of food that appeared almost magically, suspended from the walls of the tent. The containers held unfamiliar substances, thin, silvery strips that smelled faintly sweet, small grains that glimmered under the morning light, and a warm liquid that smelled faintly like honey. Mara picked up the nearest item, unsure how to start. Do you eat this? She asked, curiosity edging her fear. Kyra's lips curved in the smallest of smiles. Humans eat differently than we do, but survival requires openness. Try it. Each bite seemed designed to nourish without burdening, strange in texture but comforting in effect. She realized then that this world, harsh and alien as it was, had thought of everything to survive here. When she had finished, Kyra stood, her movements smooth and purposeful. We will begin your assessment, she said. Her voice held authority, but there was a subtle curiosity, an unspoken question in her tone. Humans are clever. We will see how clever you are. Still, she knew the first rule of survival. Observe first, act second. Kyra led her out of the tent, and the desert stretched endlessly in every direction, dunes like waves frozen in time. At the center of the camp was a structure Mara had not noticed before, a circular platform raised slightly above the sand, covered in markings that glimmered faintly in the sunlight. Around it, other aliens moved with quiet purpose, carrying objects that pulsed with energy Mara could barely comprehend. You will demonstrate your adaptability, Kyra said. The challenge is simple in description but complex in execution. You must move the energy cores from one point to another without disturbing the flow around them. Observe, think, and act. Failure will not harm you, but hesitation will show weakness. They moved in patterns that seemed random at first, but with careful observation, Mara noticed subtle rhythms, pulses that repeated every few seconds. The spheres were connected by invisible currents, delicate threads of energy that reacted to proximity and movement. Taking a deep breath, Mara stepped onto the platform. She remembered the lessons she had learned as a scout. Observe first, learn the pattern, anticipate the rhythm. She moved slowly, hands outstretched, guiding her steps by the pulses of energy. One wrong move, she knew, might disrupt the delicate balance, and Kyra's eyes were on her every second. The first sphere hovered close. Mara extended her hand, feeling the slight warmth radiating from it. She imagined it like a living thing, responding to gentle guidance. Carefully, she shifted it toward the target plate, keeping her movements slow and deliberate. A pulse of light followed her hand, brightening and dimming with each step. Mara adjusted, timing each movement with the rhythm she had observed. Kyra's eyes narrowed slightly, and Mara realized she had caught the princess's attention. The human solution was not brute strength, not even precise control alone, it was intuition. Mara was reading the currents, anticipating the energy, working with it instead of forcing it. Slowly, steadily, the first sphere reached its destination. Kyra's expression softened just a fraction. The second sphere was trickier. It moved faster, its pulse erratic, and Mara realized she would need more than observation. She took a step back, analyzing the pattern anew. Her mind raced, calculating timings, angles, and distances. Then, using a combination of small movements and subtle gestures, she guided the second sphere without touching the others. A spark of triumph shot through her chest as it settled into place. Kyra's lips curved into a faint smile, though her eyes remained sharp. "You are cautious," she observed. "You do not rush, but you think that is unusual." Mara approached each one with a methodical calm, adapting to new patterns, predicting reactions, and using minimal effort for maximum effect. She realized something profound. The aliens had designed this test not to measure strength, but intelligence, perception, and creativity, qualities humans possessed in abundance. By the time the last sphere was in place, Mara was sweating and breathing heavily, but the satisfaction of solving the challenge filled her with warmth. Kyra stepped forward, her hands clasped behind her back. "You adapt, you observe, you think, you act with care and precision. You are unlike any human I have encountered." She had faced dangers and challenges before, but this was different. This was a world that tested every instinct she had learned, every skill she had honed, and she had not failed. "You have passed the first test," Kyra continued. "The second will examine your ability to solve problems under pressure. Follow me." Mara realized then that her uniqueness, her humanity, was valuable here in a way she had never imagined. The second challenge was in a smaller tent filled with devices that hummed, pulsed, and rotated. Kyra gestured toward a panel of controls that Mara could not understand at first glance. "The system here is failing. You must stabilize it. Use whatever methods you think necessary. Observe, experiment, and act." Slowly, deliberately, she began adjusting the dials, tapping sequences, and observing the effects. The system flickered and sparked once, twice, but Mara remained calm. She experimented within the limits, tested reactions, and found a sequence that stabilized the device. Lights turned steady, hums became consistent, and energy flowed without disruption. Kyra stepped closer, her gaze sharp but not unkind. "You do not panic," Kyra said. "You observe, test, and adapt. Humans are more capable than we expected. You may have more than instinct. You may have wisdom in ways we do not." The alien princess, so powerful and precise, had recognized human ingenuity, the ability to navigate chaos, and the courage to act when stakes were high. Kyra finally nodded. "Rest. You have earned it. Tomorrow you will meet the council. Your final test will not be in skill or thought, but in trust and understanding. You will learn more than just our ways. You will learn what it means to survive here, in a world that does not forgive weakness." For the first time, she felt a quiet sense of accomplishment that went beyond survival. It was respect, recognition, and a spark of hope that perhaps humans could matter here, even in a world dominated by beings far older and more advanced. As she settled onto the soft mat in the corner of the tent, Mara reflected on the day. She had been afraid, yes, and unsure, but she had adapted, observed, and succeeded. That was what humans did. That was why they survived where others failed. And now she had a chance not just to rest, but to prove that her species had value beyond what even the most advanced civilizations could imagine. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly, indifferent to the struggles of those who crossed it. Inside the tent, Mara closed her eyes, ready to face whatever challenges the alien princess and this strange world had in store next. She had survived today, and tomorrow she would survive again with human ingenuity as her greatest weapon. The morning sun cast long shadows over the desert as Mara stepped out of the tent, feeling the weight of the day ahead. The cool night had faded, replaced by the harsh warmth of the sun on her back. She adjusted the strap of her pack and followed Kyra across the dunes. The princess moved with the same fluid, purposeful grace as before, but today there was a hint of urgency in her steps. Mara kept up as best she could, grateful that her own stamina as a human had been honed over years of exploration and survival. The camp was stirring. Aliens moved about with precision, setting up tents, adjusting devices, and patrolling the perimeter. Despite the efficiency, Mara noticed subtle tensions in their movements, small glances exchanged between soldiers, the way they paused before touching certain equipment. The desert was unforgiving, and Mara realized that even this advanced civilization had to remain alert at all times. Survival, she knew, was not just about strength. It was about awareness, adaptability, and quick thinking. Kyra led her to a larger structure near the center of the camp. It was a hall of polished metal, glowing faintly from embedded energy sources, and taller than any human building Mara had seen. She could hear faint murmurs inside, voices that seemed to vibrate with authority. Mara's heart quickened. She had been told she would meet the council today, but she had no idea what to expect. As they entered, the temperature inside shifted, cooler than the desert but not cold, the air carrying a faint metallic scent. The hall was circular, with a raised platform at the center. Around it, seated in a semicircle, were beings of all shapes and sizes, each more imposing than the last. Their eyes, bright and intelligent, turned toward Mara as she stepped forward. A quiet hum of energy ran through the room, a reminder of the world's advanced technology and the discipline of its inhabitants. Kyra gestured toward Mara. "Council, this human seeks shelter and understanding. She has passed preliminary assessments, showing adaptability, intelligence, and resourcefulness. I present her for your consideration. I have survived harsh worlds, and I learn quickly. I can observe, adapt, and help when needed. I mean no harm, and I want to understand your ways so that I can survive here responsibly." Her words were simple, but she delivered them with conviction. Another council member, smaller but with eyes like liquid silver, tilted its head. "Understanding is not enough. You must prove your worth. Survival in the desert requires more than courage. It requires cooperation and innovation." Kyra stepped forward, a hand resting briefly on Mara's shoulder. "The challenge is simple in concept, though complex in execution. You must repair the water filtration system. It is failing, and if it is not fixed, the camp will struggle to survive the next few days. Use your knowledge, intuition, and observation. You may ask questions, but the work must be your own." Water was life here in this desert world, and the system was clearly vital. She had worked with machinery before, but this was unlike anything human-made. Still, she reminded herself that the principles of engineering, observation, testing, problem-solving were universal. She could do this. She had too. The council members stepped aside, revealing the filtration system. It was enormous, a complex network of pipes, conduits, and glowing energy cores. The entire structure pulsed faintly, as if alive. Mara approached cautiously, taking in the layout. It was intricate, yes, but not incomprehensible. She could see patterns, points where flow was disrupted, and areas where connections had loosened over time. Kyra remained nearby, observing, her posture calm but alert. Mara knelt by the nearest access point, examining the conduits. Her hands moved carefully, testing connections, feeling the vibrations of energy passing through. It was delicate work. One wrong adjustment could disrupt the flow entirely. She remembered the lessons from the previous day: observe first, move second, adapt constantly. Mara traced the flow of energy, noting which pipes carried the strongest current, which ones were blocked, and how minor adjustments affected the system. Slowly, she began reconnecting conduits, rerouting energy, and stabilizing the flow. The council members watched in silence, but Mara sensed their interest growing. They were not just assessing skill, they were measuring thought, perception, and the ability to remain calm under pressure. Mara focused entirely on the system, ignoring the eyes on her back, the whispers of the council, and the heat of the desert creeping in through the walls. Hours passed, though Mara lost track of time. Sweat dripped from her brow, but she did not stop. One by one, she identified and corrected flaws, rerouted energy where it was needed, and tested every adjustment before moving to the next. The glowing cores began to stabilize, the hum of energy running smoothly, and the water flow increased steadily, clear and strong. Kyra finally spoke, her voice calm but carrying weight. You see the whole, not just the parts. You understand the consequences of each action. That is what humans do well. They see possibilities where others see obstacles. Humans were clever, adaptable, and willing to take calculated risks, qualities that even the most advanced civilizations could appreciate. The council remained silent for a long moment, then the tallest member spoke. You have succeeded. The water flows once more and the camp will survive. Your approach was unconventional but effective. That is remarkable. You will meet those who maintain order across the desert and understand the responsibilities of leadership. For now, rest. You have earned it. Humans were resilient, and today, that resilience had earned her recognition in a world that had initially seemed impossible to navigate. As the day faded into evening, Mara walked among the tents, observing the camp from a new perspective. Soldiers moved with efficiency, machines hummed with precise energy, and the desert stretched endlessly beyond the boundaries of the settlement. Yet for all its perfection, Mara realized that this civilization still relied on individuals who could think differently, act creatively, and adapt quickly. That was where she, as a human, could contribute. She returned to the tent later, exhausted but determined. The soft mat welcomed her, and she allowed herself to rest, reflecting on the lessons of the day. Humans survived not because they were the strongest or the fastest, but because they observed, learned, and adapted. They could see patterns, understand consequences, and act decisively even in the most unfamiliar circumstances. That was what made them valuable, even in an alien world. Outside, the desert wind shifted, carrying the faint hum of distant dunes. Inside, Mara closed her eyes, her mind alive with possibilities. She had navigated alien tests, impressed a princess, and earned the tentative respect of a council. She had proven herself, not through brute strength, but through human ingenuity and resilience. Kyra watched from a distance, her thoughts complex and shifting. This human was unusual, yes, but there was more. There was courage, intelligence, and a perspective that the aliens could not easily replicate. She had passed tests that would challenge even her own kind, and in doing so, she had earned something rare, recognition from beings who valued skill, creativity, and insight above all else. As night fell, Mara felt a quiet determination settle over her. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, and she would meet more of Kyra's world, more of the council, and more opportunities to prove that humans were more than just survivors. They were problem solvers, thinkers, and creators. She had crossed deserts, faced tests, and navigated alien technologies. She had survived when others might have failed. And she knew deep in her bones that she would continue to do so, because humans always found a way. For now, she slept, not just as a visitor in an alien world, but as someone who had begun to earn her place, a human among beings far older, far stronger, and far more advanced than herself. And that was only the beginning. The morning air was dry and sharp, carrying the scent of sun-warmed sand and the faint hum of the energy lines that ran through the camp. Mara rose from the soft mat that had become her temporary bed, stretching her stiff muscles. Today promised to be different. Kyra had told her that she would see more of the world beyond the camp, that she would meet those responsible for maintaining order across the desert. Mara's heart beat with both anticipation and determination. She had passed tests of skill and observation. Now she would see how humans could contribute to something larger. Kyra was waiting outside the tent, as poised and commanding as ever. The princess's eyes, bright and sharp, studied Mara as if assessing not only her readiness but her potential. Mara straightened her back, adjusting her pack, and followed silently. The sun had not yet reached its peak, but the desert already radiated heat that pressed down on them like a living weight. The camp bustled with activity. Aliens moved with precise efficiency, transporting materials, adjusting devices, and coordinating patrols. Mara noticed subtle things she had not before. The way certain units paused to observe shifting dunes, how others communicated with gestures that controlled energy fields, and the quiet way Kyra's soldiers responded to her commands. Everything was orchestrated perfectly, yet Mara understood that perfection alone was not enough. The desert demanded adaptability, and humans excelled at that. Kyra led Mara to a central platform where a large map-like device floated, suspended by glowing energy. The map displayed the surrounding desert in 3 dimensions, marking patrol routes, energy sources, and areas of potential danger. Mara could see faint red zones where the desert itself was unstable, places where shifting dunes could swallow an unprepared traveler, and blue lines indicating safe paths. "This is your next challenge," Kyra said, her voice calm but commanding. "The desert is dangerous. Our patrols monitor it constantly, but threats arise we cannot predict. You will help us plan strategies for safe movement and resource management. Show us how your human perspective can contribute." The desert was alive in its own way, patterns shifting unpredictably but not entirely without order. Mara knew humans had always excelled at seeing patterns where others saw chaos. She reached out, touching a section of the map. "If we move patrols in overlapping paths here," she began, pointing to a red zone near a narrow canyon, "we can monitor unstable areas more effectively. The energy cores are less stable during the heat of the day, so adjusting patrol timing can prevent accidents. It works on deserts, jungles, even in space." Each idea was simple in concept, yet effective in execution. The council members observed silently, occasionally exchanging glances. Mara could feel their interest growing. Even advanced beings with centuries of experience respected ingenuity, especially when it improved safety and efficiency. One of the council members, a being with deep blue skin and crystalline eyes, finally spoke. "Your human perspective is unusual. You do not follow established protocols blindly. You anticipate problems and offer solutions that challenge our assumptions. Why do you think this is valuable? That perspective can prevent mistakes and save lives." She walked with them across the desert, observing how they monitored the dunes, interacted with energy nodes, and responded to unexpected events. When a sudden shift in the sand threatened to destabilize a patrol drone, Mara shouted directions, guiding it to safety. The soldiers glanced at her with surprise and respect. "You see what we do not," Kyra remarked as they watched the drone stabilize. "Humans notice subtleties we take for granted. That is why you are here." As the sun reached its zenith, the council convened again, this time in a larger hall with windows that looked out over the entire camp. Mara presented her findings and strategies, explaining why certain patrol routes were safer, why energy nodes required adjustment, and how resource distribution could be optimized. She spoke with clarity and confidence, translating complex observations into actionable plans. The council listened, some leaning forward, others silent but attentive. Kyra stood beside Mara, her expression calm but proud. "Humans are not just survivors. They are problem solvers, thinkers, and creators. You have demonstrated that today." She had not only survived tests of skill and observation, but had contributed to the safety and efficiency of the camp. Her ideas were practical, simple, yet effective, a reflection of human ingenuity. One of the council members, the one with amber eyes, finally spoke. "Your suggestions are unconventional but effective. We accept your recommendations. The camp will implement them immediately. You have proven that humans are capable of thinking beyond established norms, and that is valuable. You will face challenges that test not only your mind but your ability to lead. Humans are valuable because they do not fear responsibility. We will see if you can manage more than observation. You must now apply what you know to guide others." She trusted her instincts and judgment, and she knew that her perspective could make a difference. As evening fell, Mara walked through the camp, observing the implementation of her strategies. Patrols moved efficiently, energy nodes functioned smoothly, and resources were distributed effectively. Soldiers glanced at her with newfound respect, and she realized that her influence was already being felt. The human had entered this camp as an outsider, yet she was becoming an integral part of its operation. Kyra joined her as the sun set, casting long shadows across the dunes. "You are not like other beings we have encountered," she said softly. "You adapt, you observe, you lead. Humans have a way of turning challenges into opportunities. That is why I brought you here. That is what makes you special." As night fell, Mara returned to her tent, exhausted but satisfied. She had navigated tests, contributed to the camp's operations, and begun to earn the respect of beings far older and stronger than herself. Sleep came easily, and for the first time she allowed herself to feel a quiet sense of accomplishment. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly, silent and indifferent. Inside, Mara lay on the mat, reflecting on the day's lessons. Humans survived not because they were the strongest or fastest, but because they observed, adapted, and acted decisively. They saw opportunities where others saw obstacles and turned challenges into advantages. Kyra's words echoed in her mind. Humans inspire because they turn survival into action, observation into strategy, and instinct into leadership. Mara had seen it in herself, and now the alien world was beginning to see it too. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but Mara was ready. She had survived before, and she would survive again, using human ingenuity, courage, and adaptability. She had earned her place, and she would continue to prove that humans were not just survivors. They were problem solvers, leaders, and creators. As sleep took her, Mara knew that she was no longer just a visitor in an alien world. She was a human capable of making a difference, and that was only the beginning. The desert morning was quiet, the wind whispering over the dunes as if holding its breath. Mara woke early, her mind buzzing with anticipation. Today, she would venture beyond the camp, exploring the outer desert alongside Kyra and the patrol units. She had spent days proving herself in tests of skill, observation, and leadership, and now the true challenge awaited, surviving and thriving in the untamed expanse of the desert. Kyra was already waiting, her form silhouetted against the rising sun. She did not speak immediately, simply watching Mara with those keen, intelligent eyes. Mara felt a mixture of nervousness and determination. She had survived so much to reach this point, yet the vast unknown stretched endlessly before her. This was no longer a controlled environment with clear rules or predictable systems. The desert itself was a living entity, and humans had a long history of thriving where others failed. "You have learned much," Kyra said finally, her voice calm and commanding. "Observation, strategy, leadership. Now you will see how your human qualities can shape events in real time. You will guide patrols, make decisions, and respond to challenges as they arise. The desert will not forgive mistakes." She had faced impossible odds before, and this desert was no different. If she remained alert, resourceful, and calm, she could make a difference. The patrols assembled, their movements precise and disciplined. Mara followed Kyra to a raised observation point, where the desert stretched in every direction, shifting dunes and hidden canyons creating a landscape both beautiful and dangerous. She could see energy nodes flickering faintly in the distance, patrol drones moving along designated paths, and soldiers scanning the horizon for threats. Kyra gestured to Mara. "The desert is unpredictable. You must anticipate hazards, adjust routes, and ensure the safety of our patrols. Your human perspective is unique. Use it." She noticed subtle patterns, shifting sands that indicated hidden crevices, wind currents that could disrupt drones, and the faint shimmer of heat haze masking energy nodes. Humans were naturally attuned to noticing small details, and Mara focused every sense on the environment. "Move patrols along these paths," she instructed, pointing to routes she had calculated. "Rotate timing to avoid heat peaks. Keep drones closer to the blue zones. Unstable areas are more dangerous than they appear." Where the aliens relied on precise protocols, she adapted to the unpredictable, anticipating events before they occurred. Hours passed, and the desert tested them. A sudden sandstorm rose from the east, visibility dropping to near zero. Drones struggled to maintain position, and patrol units risked becoming lost. Mara reacted immediately, guiding units toward sheltered dunes, rerouting drones using emergency energy channels, and signaling adjustments to avoid collisions. Her calm decisiveness prevented disaster, and the soldiers followed her instructions without hesitation. Kyra watched closely, a small smile forming. "You do not merely survive," she said quietly. "You act when others hesitate. That is why humans endure." Every suggestion was practical, grounded in observation and experience, yet it demonstrated creativity beyond the rigid thinking of even the most advanced alien minds. One of the council members appeared on a communications link, observing Mara's actions. "The human solutions are effective," the voice said. "Unconventional, yet they ensure efficiency and safety. We have underestimated human adaptability. You see what others overlook, anticipate the unexpected, and turn challenges into opportunities. Humans are rare in this respect." Kyra gestured toward the horizon. "Tomorrow, you will accompany the patrols to the edge of the desert, where danger is greater and unpredictability rules. This will test everything you have learned." The desert would challenge her, but she had already demonstrated that her species' strength lay not in technology alone, but in adaptability, intuition, and courage. That night, she reflected on the days she had spent in the camp. From being an outsider, she had proven her skill in observation, problem-solving, and leadership. She had earned the respect of the council and the trust of Kyra, not by following protocols blindly, but by thinking creatively and acting decisively. Humans were remarkable in their resilience, and this alien world had begun to recognize it. Sleep came easily, filled with a quiet confidence. Mara knew that tomorrow would bring new tests, but she felt prepared. She had learned to navigate alien technology, coordinate patrols, and anticipate environmental hazards. Humans thrived where unpredictability reigned, and she had proven that she could do more than survive. She could lead, adapt, and influence outcomes in ways the aliens had never expected. The next morning, the desert stretched endlessly, golden and vast. Mara stood with Kyra and the patrol units, ready to face the outer reaches where sand dunes gave way to jagged rocks and hidden canyons. The stakes were higher here. The desert would test not only physical endurance, but also judgment and foresight. Mara led the patrols, her instructions precise yet adaptable. She guided drones through tricky corridors of shifting sand, redirected energy flows around unstable zones, and anticipated hazards before they appeared. Her human intuition proved invaluable as unpredictable events occurred. A sudden sinkhole, a flash of sand that could blind units, or an unexpected energy surge in a node. Each time, Mara acted decisively, preventing disaster and keeping the patrols safe. Kyra observed silently, impressed by Mara's effectiveness. "You do not rely solely on rules," she said later. "You anticipate, improvise, and act with clarity. Humans are remarkable in this respect." Mara presented her observations, explaining how she had managed patrols, stabilized resources, and ensured safety in unpredictable conditions. Her strategies were simple, practical, and effective, yet they reflected a human ability to adapt to chaos in ways the aliens could not fully anticipate. The council members exchanged glances, nodding with approval. "This human demonstrates insight beyond her species," one said. "She turns unpredictability into advantage. That is why she is valuable. She has not only earned her place in the camp, but has demonstrated that her perspective can shape outcomes in ways we could not foresee." Her human ingenuity had not only ensured her survival, but had influenced an entire alien camp. That evening, she walked through the camp, observing soldiers adjusting their routines based on her strategies, drones moving more efficiently, and energy nodes functioning smoothly. She realized that her presence had made a tangible difference, and it filled her with quiet satisfaction. Humans were resilient, adaptable, and capable of turning challenges into opportunities. She had proven it. Kyra joined her at the edge of the camp, gazing at the desert that stretched endlessly. "You have done well," she said. "Humans are capable of remarkable things. You survive not by strength alone, but by thinking, observing, and acting. That is why your kind endures." As night fell, Mara lay on her mat, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. She had come seeking a place to sleep, but she had found something far greater: respect, recognition, and the realization that human qualities could make a difference, even in a world dominated by advanced aliens. The desert outside was silent, vast, and unforgiving, yet Mara felt a quiet confidence. She had survived, adapted, and influenced outcomes through intelligence, courage, and creativity. Humans had always done so, and she would continue to do so, wherever the universe placed her. Kyra watched the camp from a distance, her thoughts focused on the human who had proven herself beyond expectation. Mara had earned her place, not by following orders blindly, but by observing, learning, and acting decisively. The princess knew that humans were rare and remarkable, capable of turning survival into strategy and chaos into opportunity. Mara closed her eyes, ready for whatever challenges the desert and this alien world might bring. She had survived, she had adapted, and she had proven the value of human ingenuity. And for the first time, she felt not just relief, but pride, a quiet, enduring knowledge that humans were capable of extraordinary things, even among beings far stronger and older than themselves. The night deepened, and Mara slept not as a visitor, but as someone who had earned her place. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons, and new opportunities to demonstrate the human ability to adapt, observe, and lead. She had come seeking shelter, and she had found recognition, respect, and a role in a world that would never forget the impact of a single human who refused to be ordinary.